The auditorium is alive with noise. Laughter, cheers, the rustle of programs clutched in eager hands. A sea of graduation caps bobs up and down as students settle into their seats, nerves and excitement filling the air like static before a storm. She sits among them, her own cap tugged low, gown pressed carefully, hands folded tightly in her lap. Her name will be called soon, and she should be smiling, flushed with pride. But instead, her eyes are elsewhere, scanning the rows of crowded bleachers, searching, hoping. "Please," she whispers under her breath, her lips barely moving. "Please be here." Families wave wildly at their children, fathers holding up signs, mothers snapping pictures, siblings climbing on chairs to get a better view. The sight makes her chest ache. Each cheer feels like an echo of what she doesn't have. The ceremony begins. The principal speaks of perseverance, of sacrifice, of the bright futures waiting ahead. Applause erupts at every cliché, every pause for effect. She claps along, but her palms feel hollow against each other. Empty of joy, her gaze flickers again to the far left of the bleachers, where a group of people in team jerseys sit. For a moment, her heart leaps. Maybe they came straight from a party. Maybe they're here, hidden in the crowd. But no, it's strangers, already planning which bar they'll watch the Super Bowl at once this ends. Her throat tightens. Names are being called now, one by one. Students rise, walk across the stage, their families cheering so loud the rafters shake. Bouquets are thrust into waiting hands. Castles are kissed by proud parents. Her name is coming closer. She grips the edge of her chair, her nails digging into the fabric. For just one moment, she lets herself imagine it. Her family standing, clapping until their hands sting, smiling through tears. Her father's voice booming above the crowd. Her mother's arms open, ready to fold her into the hug she's dreamed of for years. The fantasy fades as quickly as it forms. And next, graduating with honors. Her name. She forces herself to stand. Legs trembling though, her steps are steady. The spotlight glares as she climbs the stage, the applause ringing out polite but hollow. It isn't for her. Not really. She walks across, shakes the dean's hand, accepts the diploma with a stiff smile. Cameras flash, strangers, capturing a face that looks composed but carries an ocean of loneliness beneath the surface dot as she steps down. She glances once more at the crowd. Rows upon rows of people, all strangers. The seats where her family should be are just empty metal frames, cold and unyielding. The rest of the ceremony passes in a blur. Names, clapping, caps tossed into the air. She throws hers too, because that's what everyone else does. But her fingers release it reluctantly, as though clinging to the moment would somehow make it different. Outside, graduates swarm the lawn, laughter and celebration spilling into the golden afternoon. Parents cradle their children's faces, cameras click, bouquets exchange hands. There are squeals, happy tears, arms linked in tight embraces. She stands apart, diploma case clutched against her chest. Alone. A group of classmates notices her and waves. "Congratulations." One of them calls, their arms full of flowers. She smiles, polite, but it doesn't reach her eyes. The truth presses down on her, heavier than the black gown still weighing her shoulders. Her family didn't come. Not because they couldn't. Not because something happened. They chose not to. Her phone buzzes in her pocket. She pulls it out, hope flaring desperately. Maybe a last-minute message. Maybe an apology. Maybe something. It's a text from her cousin. "You watching the game?" Crazy first quarter already. Her stomach knots. She shoves the phone back into her gown pocket, blinking hard against the sting behind her eyes. She refuses to let the tears fall here, in front of everyone else. Instead, she walks. Away from the crowds, away from the camera flashes, past the balloons tangled in tree branches and the smell of cut grass. She finds a bench tucked behind the science building, where the noise fades to a dull murmur. For a long time, she sits in silence. The diploma case rests beside her, unopened. Her cap lies on the ground. She presses her palms to her eyes, forcing her breath steady. "Don't cry," she whispers, though the command trembles. Don't give them that, but the tears come anyway. Hot, quiet, betraying her resolve. Footsteps crunch on the gravel. She stiffens, quickly wiping her cheeks, pulling her shoulders back. Whoever it is, she won't let them see her like this. "Hey," a voice says softly. Male, warm, hesitant. She looks up. It's him, the friend of a friend she's seen at study groups, someone whose name hovers on the edge of memory. He's holding his cap in his hands, his eyes catching the trace of her tears, even though she tries to hide them. "You okay?" he asks. She opens her mouth, ready to lie. To say she's fine, just tired, just overwhelmed. But something in his expression, not pity, not judgment, just quiet concern, unravels the shield she's built. "No," she admits, the word escaping like a confession. Her voice cracks, raw. "Not really." He doesn't press, doesn't flood the silence with meaningless comfort. He just sits down beside her, close enough that she feels his presence, far enough that she doesn't feel trapped. "I didn't see your family in the crowd," he says carefully. Her throat burns. That's because they weren't there. The honesty shocks her, as much as it seems to shock him. But once it's spoken, the truth feels lighter, even if it still hurts. He nods slowly. Their loss. 2 words, simple, but they strike something deep inside her. No one's ever said that before. Everyone else always makes excuses for her family, brushes off her hurt. But he doesn't. He sees it. She exhales shakily, pressing her hands together to keep them from trembling. For the first time all day, the silence doesn't feel so crushing. The sun dips lower, painting the world in streaks of orange and rose. Around them, laughter still rises. But here on the quiet bench, something else grows, fragile, uncertain, but real. She glances at him, surprised at the comfort his presence offers. He meets her gaze, his eyes gentle, steady. "Congratulations," he says quietly. "I know it doesn't feel like it right now, but it's a big deal. You should be proud." Her lips tremble, but she nods. And though the ache in her chest hasn't vanished, something else flickers. The faintest spark of warmth, of being seen. For the first time all day, she doesn't feel invisible dot, and yet, beneath the fragile peace, the wound remains. The unanswered question of why her family chose the game over her. That ache won't fade easily. She looks away, her eyes on the horizon where the sun bleeds into dusk. "Yeah," she whispers. "Maybe someday." The silence stretches between them, heavy but not unbearable. The kind of silence that promises something more, if she's brave enough to reach for it. The night air hums with celebration, but not the kind she longs for. From her window, she can hear the faint echoes of cheers rolling across the neighborhood. Televisions blasting, car horns blaring, voices chanting in unison. The Super Bowl dot, she sits cross-legged on her bed, gown folded in a heap on the chair, diploma case untouched on the dresser. The faint smell of roses lingers from the bouquets handed to others. Earlier that day, bouquets she never received. Her phone buzzes again. She picks it up reluctantly. It's a message from her brother this time. "Game's insane tonight. You should have come. Everyone's here. Snacks, drinks, the works. Families all together." Her thumb hovers above the screen. A bitter laugh escapes her lips, though it tastes like iron in her throat. Families all together. Except for her. On her day dot, she sets the phone down face first and pulls her knees to her chest. The silence of her room presses in heavy, but beneath it, She can still hear the roars of celebration drifting from blocks away. It's cruel how the world seems to mock her, every cheer reminding her of where her family chose to be. Her mind replays the moment over and over, walking off the stage, scanning the crowd, only to find emptiness where their faces should have been. That absence had been loud enough. But now, knowing exactly where they were instead, laughing in a living room, eyes glued to a screen that burns deeper, the doorbell rings. She startles, wiping her face quickly as though someone might see the tears streaked across her cheeks. When she opens the door, it's him, the same boy from earlier, the one who'd found her on the bench behind the science building. He holds 2 takeout bags in his hands, warm steam rising from the tops. "Didn't think you'd want to be alone tonight," he says, his voice soft, not intruding but steady, like an anchor in stormy waters. For a moment, she can't find words. She simply steps aside, and he enters, filling the quiet apartment with the faint aroma of fries and burgers. He sets the bags down on the table, pulling out 2 drinks. "You didn't have to," she murmurs, her voice still raw from holding back hours of unspoken hurt. "Maybe not." He shrugs lightly, offering a small smile. "But I wanted to." They sit across from each other, the table littered with crumpled wrappers and half-eaten fries. She pushes food around absent-mindedly while he eats slowly, watching her with a patience that makes her throat tighten. "You want to tell me what's going on?" he asks gently. Her hands freeze on the straw of her drink. Part of her wants to brush it off, to deflect. But another part, the aching, exhausted part, wants someone, anyone, to finally listen. "They didn't come," she whispers. The words tremble as they leave her lips, heavy with shame she shouldn't have to carry. "Your family?" he asks. She nods. Her eyes sting, but she forces herself to meet his gaze. They were busy. With the game, his jaw tightens almost imperceptibly. "The Super Bowl?" A bitter laugh escapes her, sharper this time. "Yeah, guess touchdowns mattered more than their daughter walking across a stage." The silence that follows isn't empty. It's thick, pulsing with unspoken anger on her behalf. He doesn't rush to fill it with empty comfort. Instead, he leans forward, his voice low, steady. "They don't deserve you." Her breath catches. The words land like a spark in a dark room, small but piercing. "They should have been there," he continues. "No excuses. No game is bigger than what you accomplished today." For a moment, she can't speak. She wants to believe him, wants to let those words settle into the hollow her family left behind. But the ache is stubborn. "It's not just today," she admits quietly. "It's always something. Always a reason not to show up. I used to think maybe if I worked harder, did better, they'd notice." But her voice falters. "They never do?" He reaches across the table, not grabbing, just resting his hand close enough for her to see the offer. An invitation, not a demand. After a moment, she lets her fingers brush his tentative, fragile. "You don't have to keep proving yourself to people who refuse to see you," he says. "You're already more than enough." Her eyes sting again, but this time the tears don't taste of bitterness. They're softer, carrying relief. They eat in silence after that, not because there's nothing to say, but because the presence of someone who cares is enough to quiet the ache, if only for a while. Later, when the food is gone and the wrappers crumpled into a pile, he stands to leave. At the door, he pauses, turning back. "If you ever need company, or just someone to remind you how much you're worth, I'm around." Her chest tightens. "Thank you," she whispers. He nods, offering a small smile before stepping into the night. She closes the door softly, leaning her forehead against it. For the first time that day, the silence of the apartment doesn't feel suffocating. There's a new warmth lingering in the air, faint but undeniable. But just as hope flickers, her phone buzzes again. She hesitates, dread curling in her stomach. Picking it up, she sees the group chat from her family lighting up with pictures. Tables stacked with pizza boxes, people cheering, faces painted with team colors. Best Super Bowl party ever. One caption reads, "Her chest caves in." The images blur as her eyes sting once more. They hadn't just skipped her graduation. They celebrated something else, together. As though her moment didn't matter at all, she sets the phone down, her hand trembling. But this time, something feels different. The ache hasn't disappeared, but beneath it, a seed of defiance begins to grow. She whispers to herself, steady despite the tears. "I'll be more than this. More than what they see. More than what they chose." Outside, the cheers grow louder as the game nears its end. But inside, a new resolve begins to take root, fragile but real, a quiet promise to herself. The laughter and chatter of her classmates swelled around her like a tide she couldn't step into. Everyone had someone. Parents, siblings, friends holding bouquets, voices hoarse from cheering. Arms linked, cameras flashing, hugs exchanged in endless loops. But for her, there was only the echo of footsteps on polished tiles, the hollow space where pride should have lived. She clutched her graduation cap tighter, its edge pressing into her palm. The tassel swayed with her movements, as if mocking her solitude. She told herself she had expected this. She knew her family too well, knew their patterns, their priorities. But knowing didn't soften the blow. She had walked across the stage, received her diploma, smiled at the sea of strangers, and stepped down into emptiness. Every glance into the crowd had found nothing but vacant chairs where her family should have been. Now, standing in the courtyard beneath strings of golden lights, she felt like a ghost at her own celebration. "Congratulations." A voice called, pulling her back. It was Anna, her classmate, her voice bright and bubbly. Beside her stood a tall figure she didn't recognize. Anna wrapped her in a hug. "You did it. I'm so proud of you. This is my cousin Daniel. He just flew in from Portland for a few weeks." The man beside Anna smiled politely, his eyes a shade of gray-blue that seemed to soften under the lights. His hair fell carelessly into his face, and he gave a small nod. "Hi," he said. His voice was calm, grounding, like water over stone. She forced a smile, the kind she had practiced. "Hi, nice to meet you." Anna's phone buzzed, and she pulled away. "I've got to grab drinks with the others, but I'll see you soon, okay?" She winked and disappeared into the throne, leaving her standing awkwardly beside Daniel. Silence stretched between them, thick and uncertain. She shifted her weight, debating whether to excuse herself, when his voice came again. "You don't look like you want to be here," he said softly. The words startled her. Most people skimmed the surface. "Congrats." Or "You must be so happy." No one looked deeper. No one noticed the weight in her shoulders, the stiffness in her smile. She swallowed, her throat suddenly dry. "It's been a long day." He studied her for a moment, not with judgment, but with quiet curiosity. His eyes weren't demanding, only patient. Long in a good way, or long in a heavy way? Her chest tightened. She wanted to lie, to shrug it off, to keep her walls intact. But something about his voice, the steadiness of it, made the truth slip out. "Both," she whispered. He nodded, as if he understood more than her words gave away. "I get that." The noise around them blurred, fading into the background. She found herself walking toward a quieter corner of the courtyard, and he followed, not intrusively, but as if he knew she needed the space. They stopped beneath an old oak tree, its branches draped with fairy lights. The air was cooler here, carrying the faint scent of roses from the garden beds. "Do you mind if I ask?" he said gently. "Who came for you today?" The question cut sharp, and she looked down, her hands gripping the cap. "No one." Silence. Then, not pity, not awkwardness, just his voice, quiet and steady. "I'm sorry." That must have hurt. The words undid her. Not because they were grand, but because they were simple. Honest. No one had said it yet. Not even she had allowed herself to admit it aloud. Tears pricked her eyes, and she blinked them away quickly. They had other plans. He didn't press. Didn't ask who or why or what kind of plans could matter more than this. He just let the air hold her truth, like it was safe here. "I shouldn't be telling you this," she said, forcing a laugh. "We just met." He smiled faintly. Sometimes strangers are easier. They don't carry the same expectations. His words struck something deep, something raw. She looked at him fully now, at the way his gaze didn't shy away from her sadness, didn't flinch. His eyes were gentle, not the gentleness of fragility, but of strength that didn't need to shout. For a moment, she felt seen. They talked not about the pain, but about everything else. About Portland and the rain that seemed endless there. About how he hated coffee but loved bookstores. About how he'd traveled here on a whim, needing space to breathe after a messy breakup. She found herself laughing genuinely, the sound surprising even her Dot, and then, without meaning to, she began to share. Little fragments of herself, like pieces of glass she had been holding too tightly. The books that kept her company on nights she couldn't sleep. The way she collected pressed flowers between pages. The way silence at home felt heavier than noise. He listened, never rushing, never interrupting. And when he spoke, it was with care, as if every word mattered. Dot as the night deepened. Music played faintly from the speakers across the courtyard. A slow song drifted in, and couples moved to the makeshift dance floor. She looked at them wistfully, her heart aching with longing she didn't dare name. He noticed. "Do you want to?" he asked, nodding toward the dancers. Her instinct was to say no, to hide behind excuses. But then she caught the kindness in his expression, the way he didn't pressure her, just offered. Her hand trembled slightly as she placed it in his. His palm was warm, steady, anchoring. They stepped onto the edge of the dance floor, swaying gently beneath the lights. She felt her pulse quicken, her breath catch. Not because she was in love, not yet, but because someone was holding her in the moment she had thought she would be most alone. "You're better at this than me," she murmured nervously. He chuckled, low and easy. "I doubt that." They moved slowly, not perfectly, but enough. The world shrank to the rhythm of the song, the warmth of his hand, the safety in his eyes. For the first time that day, the ache in her chest loosened. When the music faded, they lingered, neither ready to step back. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking slightly. "For noticing." His gaze held hers, unwavering. Some people are impossible not to notice. Her breath caught. She wanted to say something, to answer, but the words tangled in her throat. Dot, and then Anna's voice called from across the courtyard. "Daniel, come on, we're leaving." Reality snapped back. He released her hand slowly, reluctantly. "It was good meeting you," he said, his voice softer now, edged with something unspoken. Dot, she nodded, swallowing the ache rising again. "You too." As he walked away, disappearing into the crowd, she stood beneath the lights, her heart suspended between sorrow and something new. She wasn't sure if she'd ever see him again, but she knew one thing. For a fleeting moment, a stranger's gentle eyes had made her feel less invisible. The cafe was nearly empty when she pushed open the glass door, the bell above tinkling softly. Warm air, rich with the scent of roasted beans and vanilla, wrapped around her. Outside, the night was cold and sharp, but here the dim lights softened everything, casting long shadows across wooden tables and shelves stacked with books. Dot, she spotted him instantly. Daniel sat in the corner booth, jacket draped over the seat beside him, his hands wrapped around a ceramic mug. His hair was slightly mussed, as though he'd run a hand through it too many times. When he looked up and saw her, his smile was small but genuine, the kind that made her heart thud against her ribs. "You came," he said. She slid into the booth opposite him, setting her bag down beside her. "I almost didn't." "Why?" She stared at the dark swirl of coffee in his cup. "Because it feels dangerous. Talking to someone who actually notices." His eyes softened, though he didn't push. Instead, he lifted a hand, signaling to the barista. "What's your drink?" She hesitated. "Just a cappuccino." Minutes later, the cup was placed before her, foam dusted with cinnamon. She held it carefully, letting the warmth seep into her palms. For a while, silence lingered between them. Not the heavy kind, but tentative, like both were waiting for the other to break it. Finally, Daniel leaned forward slightly. "So, tell me something true. Not the kind of thing you say when people ask how you are. Something you usually keep to yourself." Her breath caught. No one had ever asked her that before. The question was too sharp, too direct, and yet something about his tone made it feel safe. She looked at the steam rising from her cup as if the answer might be hidden there. "I hate going home," she admitted, the words fragile. "Not because it's dangerous. Just empty. Like the walls don't know my name." He didn't look away, didn't flinch. His hands rested on the table, fingers loose, his gaze steady. "That sounds lonely." She swallowed hard, heat stinging her eyes. "It is, but it's also normal. You get used to being overlooked, like your furniture in the room. Necessary, maybe, but never seen." Daniel leaned back, exhaling slowly. "I know that feeling." Her head lifted, startled. "You do?" He nodded, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Different reasons, maybe. But yeah. Growing up, my dad was a ghost even when he was in the room. He worked, he drank, he sat in front of the TV, and I'd sit there hoping he'd look at me, just once. Most nights, he didn't. Their eyes met, a quiet recognition passing between them. Two souls carrying invisible bruises, suddenly not so alone. She found her voice again, softer now. "Does it ever stop hurting?" He tilted his head, considering. "No, but it changes. Some wounds don't close, but they become part of who you are. And sometimes someone comes along who makes you forget they're even there." Her heart twisted at his words. She wanted to believe him, wanted to let those words wrap around her like the warmth of the coffee in her hands. But a part of her, the part that had learned to survive on disappointment, clung tightly to caution. She laughed lightly, though it came out brittle. "You talk like you've got it figured out." Daniel shook his head. "Not even close. I just know what it feels like to want to be seen. And I don't want you to carry that alone." Her chest ached at his gentleness. No one had ever said that to her before. For a long moment, they just sat there, the hum of the coffee machine filling the quiet, the occasional clink of a spoon on ceramic breaking the stillness. She wanted to reach across the table, to let her hand find his, but fear kept her still. Instead, she asked, "Why do you care?" The question slipped out before she could stop it, raw and trembling. Daniel blinked, surprised, then leaned forward again, elbows resting on the table. "Because you matter. Even if you don't believe it yet." The words hit her like a tidal wave, stealing her breath. She looked away quickly, blinking back tears. She had built her life on silence, on swallowing every ache, on convincing herself she was fine. To hear the opposite, to be told she mattered, was almost unbearable. She lifted her cup again, sipping just to have something to do with her hands. The coffee was bitter, strong, grounding. "I don't know what to do with that," she whispered. "You don't have to do anything," Daniel said gently. "Just let it be true." Her lips parted, but no words came. She had no defense against his kindness, no armor thick enough to deflect it. For the first time, she let herself smile. Small, shaky, but real. He smiled back, and for a fleeting second, the world outside the cafe didn't exist. There was only this booth, this warmth, this fragile tether between them. They talked until the cafe began to close, their voices low, weaving stories and secrets into the night. She told him about the books that kept her alive, about the pressed flowers she hid in pages. He told her about his love for wandering cities on foot, about how he once spent a whole night in a train station just listening to strangers' stories. Each confession felt like a small freedom, a lock clicking open. When they finally stepped out into the night, the cold air bit at her cheeks, but she hardly noticed. Daniel walked beside her, his stride easy, unhurried. Their hands brushed once, twice, as though testing the possibility. At the corner where their paths split, they stopped. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked, hope threaded in his voice. Her instinct was to retreat, to keep the walls intact. But something inside her, the part that had longed for this kind of presence, answered for her. "Yes," she said softly. "Same time." His smile widened, and he nodded. "Good night." She watched him walk away, his figure fading into the glow of the streetlights. When he was gone, she touched her hand to her chest, as if to steady the unfamiliar flutter there. The night air was cool, carrying the faint scent of wet pavement and blooming jasmine from the neighbors' gardens. She walked beside Daniel, her coat pulled tightly around her, though the warmth blooming in her chest had little to do with the weather. It was late, far later than she had intended to be out. The coffee shop's lights were long behind them, and the streets had quieted, leaving only the hum of distant traffic and the occasional bark of a dog echoing through the neighborhood. Their footsteps fell in rhythm, soft against the cracked sidewalks, as though their bodies already knew how to move together. Daniel glanced at her, a half-smile tugging at his lips. "You know, I think this city looks better at night. The world slows down. Less noise, fewer eyes watching. It feels honest." She tilted her head, studying the way the streetlights brushed against his profile, catching in his dark hair, softening the lines of his jaw. He was right. The night stripped the city bare, leaving just them, two figures drifting through a world that seemed, for once, quiet enough to listen. "Honest," she repeated, tasting the word. "That's not something I've felt in a while." Daniel slowed his pace just slightly, enough to turn his gaze fully on her. "Why's that?" She bit her lip, hesitating. How much should she give away? But his presence, steady and patient, tugged at something inside her, a reminder that she didn't always have to carry everything alone. "Because honesty feels dangerous," she admitted finally. "Every time I've been honest with my family, it just proved how little I mattered. My achievements, my words, even my feelings, they were background noise. The game was always more important. The party was always more important." Her throat tightened, but she forced herself to keep walking, her eyes fixed on the glowing path ahead. Daniel didn't interrupt. He didn't offer empty reassurances. He simply let her words hang in the air, honoring them with silence. After a while, he spoke, his voice low. "They were wrong," he said, "and you deserved better." The simplicity of his words shook her more than any elaborate comfort could. Her steps faltered, and she glanced at him, searching his face for pity. But there was none. Just sincerity, steady as the rhythm of his stride. She swallowed hard, her voice barely a whisper. "You really believe that?" "I don't just believe it," he replied. "I know it." For a moment, the world seemed to still. The hum of traffic faded, the night sounds dimmed. There was only his gaze, unwavering, cutting through the layers she had built around her heart. Her pulse quickened, and she looked away, pretending to study the cracks in the sidewalk. The silence between them shifted, no longer tentative, but charged, heavy with something unspoken. They turned a corner, entering a narrower street lined with old lampposts. The golden glow cast long shadows, pooling in the spaces between. It felt like stepping into another world, one reserved only for them. Without thinking, she slowed her steps. The silence deepened, wrapping around them like a blanket. Her fingers brushed against the side of her coat, restless until they grazed his hand. A fleeting touch, accidental but electric. She froze, her breath catching. Daniel's hand lingered close, not moving away, not closing the gap either. For a heartbeat, they simply walked like that, close enough that the space between them burned with possibility. Then, slowly, he shifted. His fingers brushed hers again, deliberate this time, tentative as a question. She glanced at him, startled. His expression was unreadable, his eyes focused forward, but the corner of his mouth hinted at a smile. Her chest tightened. Every instinct screamed to pull back, to protect the fragile barriers she had spent years building. But another voice, quieter yet stronger, whispered, "Don't let go." So she didn't. Her fingers curled, tentative at first, then firmer, until his hand closed around hers. Warm, steady, grounding. It was such a simple gesture, but it felt like stepping off a ledge into open air. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. The silence now was rich, full of meaning, not absence, but presence. She could feel the unspoken words, in the way his thumb brushed lightly against her knuckles, in the way his stride adjusted to match hers perfectly. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt chosen. The thought both soothed and terrified her. They walked like that for blocks, until the houses thinned and the streets grew quieter still. The world seemed to shrink to just the glow of lampposts, their joined hands, and the steady rhythm of their breaths. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "You don't have to answer this, but when was the last time someone held your hand?" The question pierced deeper than she expected. She thought back to school halls, to family gatherings, to milestones where hands should have been there for her. Her throat tightened. "I don't remember," she admitted. "Not like this, anyway." He gave her hand the faintest squeeze, as if anchoring her. "Then let this be the first." Her eyes stung, tears threatening, but she blinked them back. There was too much at stake in this fragile moment to let it drown. They stopped at a small park, its swings swaying gently in the night breeze. Daniel gestured toward a bench, and they sat, hands still linked. She could hear the faint rustle of leaves, the creak of metal chains. For a while, they just sat, watching the empty playground as though it were a stage set only for them. Finally, she turned to him. "Why are you doing this? Why me?" His brow furrowed slightly, as though the question itself puzzled him. "Because you're worth knowing. Because I see you." The words struck her like lightning. Her chest tightened, and she had to look away, staring at the empty swing that rocked gently in the breeze. She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. But the fear that lingered in her, the fear of being left, of being hurt again, clawed at her resolve. "You don't know what you're saying," she murmured. "You don't know how easy it is to disappear for me. How forgettable I am." Daniel shifted closer, his voice firm but gentle. "You're not forgettable. And if you disappear, I'll find you." The intensity in his tone startled her. She turned to him, and for a moment, their faces were only inches apart, shadows and lamplight, painting them in gold and gray. Her breath caught. The air between them crackled, charged, as if the whole world held its breath. But then, fear surged. She looked down, pulling her hand slightly from his. The absence of his touch was immediate. Aching. Daniel didn't protest. He leaned back slightly, giving her space. But his eyes, steady, kind, unwavering, remained on her. She wrapped her arms around herself, trying to steady the whirlwind inside. "I don't know how to do this." His voice was calm, a whisper in the night. "Then we'll learn together." The words lodged in her chest, dangerous and comforting all at once. The silence returned, thick with possibility. She wasn't ready to leap, not yet. But maybe, just maybe, she was ready to stand at the edge. The late autumn air feels different tonight, sharp but alive, scented with wood smoke and faintly of roasted chestnuts from the street vendor on the corner. She walks home with Ethan at her side, the sound of his laughter still echoing in her chest like a song she's afraid to forget. His presence steadies her. Even their silences seem to hum with meaning. "Do you ever feel," she asks softly, eyes on the pavement lit golden by street lamps, "that happiness is something fragile? Like glass? One wrong move and it shatters." Ethan slows his steps. "Yes," he says, after a thoughtful pause. "But glass also reflects light. Sometimes the cracks make it more beautiful." His words reach deeper than he knows, soothing a wound she rarely lets anyone near. She nods but doesn't reply. Words seem too small to contain what she feels in this moment. By the time she reaches her apartment building, warmth has bloomed in her chest, quiet and tentative, like a candle that could go out with one breath. She says goodbye to Ethan with a smile that lingers longer than she means for it to. But when she pushes open her door, the fragile glow vanishes. Her brother, Mark, sits slouched on the couch, legs spread wide, his old baseball cap shadowing his face. On the kitchen counter, her mother rifles through the mail like it belongs to her. Her father leans against the wall, arms crossed, impatience etched into his expression. For a second, she freezes. She hasn't seen them since graduation, since the Super Bowl party that mattered more than her. Her chest tightens as if invisible hands are squeezing the air from her lungs. "What are you doing here?" Her voice is quieter than she intends, but firm enough to carry. Her mother looks up, all false sweetness. "We missed you too, honey. You don't call anymore. We thought we'd drop in." Her father cuts in before she can respond. "We need your help. Things are tight right now. You're working, aren't you? It's time you start giving back. Family comes first." The words slice through her like a blade, sharpened by years of repetition. Family comes first. It was the mantra used to guilt her into babysitting instead of studying, cleaning instead of resting, swallowing her own dreams to support theirs. She thought she had outgrown its power. She sets her bag down carefully, as if not to disturb the thin thread of self-control she's holding on to. "Giving back?" She repeats. "You weren't there for me. Not when it mattered." Mark scoffs. "Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. It was just a game." Her vision blurs, tears threatening to rise, but anger steadies her. "It was my graduation, and you weren't there. None of you were." Silence hangs, heavy and accusing. Her mother shifts uncomfortably. Her father's jaw hardens. "We're your family," her father says finally, his tone cold. "You owe us." The word "owe" hits like a slap. Her breath catches, her pulse hammering. She wants to scream, to shake them, to make them understand what they've stolen from her. But she knows she can't. Not them. "I don't owe you anything," she whispers, her voice trembling but true. "Not anymore." Her mother's eyes flash, wounded but manipulative. "After everything we've done for you? Roof over your head, food on the table. Love would have been nice," she cuts in sharply, surprising even herself. The words spill out like wildfire, unstoppable now. Support would have been nice. Pride in me would have been nice. But no, all I ever got was guilt. Mark mutters something under his breath about her being selfish, but she ignores him. Her father takes a step forward, towering over her. "Be careful, girl," he warns. Don't forget where you came from. Her chest heaves. She wants to retreat, but she can't, not again. I haven't forgotten, she says. That's the problem. The tension crackles, unbearable, until a knock at the door breaks it. Ethan's voice filters through, warm and grounding. Hey, you left your scarf in my car. Her family stiffens. She doesn't move for a moment, torn between two worlds. Then, with shaking hands, she opens the door. Ethan stands there, holding out her scarf, his eyes soft but instantly alert as he takes in the scene behind her. Everything okay? He asks gently. She swallows hard. The lump in her throat makes it impossible to answer. Her father's voice cuts in, sharp and territorial. Who's this? Ethan straightens slightly, calm but steady. I'm a friend. His gaze lingers on her, as if silently asking if she needs more from him than that dot for the first time that night. She breathes. Ethan's presence is a lifeline, a reminder of the fragile new world she's building. One with light, with choice, with belonging. But the chains of the old world still rattle. Her family lingers like a storm cloud in her living room, demanding, accusing, reminding her of wounds she thought were healing. She takes the scarf, clutching it tightly, her knuckles white. Her eyes meet Ethan's, pleading without words. Don't let me drown in them again. And he seems to understand. His hand brushes hers. Subtle but grounding dot. Her father clears his throat, his voice hard. We'll talk later. Don't forget what I said. When they finally leave, the apartment feels both heavier and lighter. The silence they leave behind presses against her chest. She sinks onto the couch, trembling. Ethan sits beside her, not touching, but close enough to offer warmth. You don't owe them, he says softly. Her tears spill over at last. But they're my family. Doesn't that mean something? It means they should love you, not use you. The truth of his words cracks something open inside her. She leans back, closing her eyes, torn between grief for what she never had and gratitude for what she sees. Beginning to find. The candle of hope flickers again, fragile, defiant, and she realizes belonging isn't given by blood. It's chosen. The knock comes earlier than she expected. Morning light barely filters through the thin curtains, pale and unforgiving when the sound echoes again, harder this time, rattling her chest as much as the door. She sits frozen on the edge of the couch, the phone still in her hand, its glow mocking her with the message from last night. We'll be back tomorrow. Think carefully about your answer. She had thought about it. All night, in fact. Thought until her head ached and her chest throbbed. And still, she doesn't have an answer. Another knock. A man's voice this time. Her father's. Open the door. Her pulse leaps like a trapped bird. She wants to run, but her feet carry her forward anyway. She unlatches the chain, opens the door, and in they come. Her father first, her mother tight on his heels, Mark trailing behind with his careless slouch. The room seems to shrink instantly. No greetings. No warmth. Just expectation. Her father doesn't sit. He stays standing, towering like a judge, ready to hand down a sentence. We'll make this simple, he says. You're earning now. You contribute. Rent, bills, whatever. Family comes first. The words strike like a whip, and suddenly she's 17 again, swallowing back tears as they told her the same thing to keep her quiet. Her voice trembles, but holds. I don't owe you my paycheck. I barely owe you a conversation. Her mother gasps, hand pressed dramatically to her chest. How can you say that to your own family? You stopped being my family the day you chose a football game over my future. Her words come sharp, raw, like glass cutting her own tongue as she speaks. Mark laughs under his breath. You're still hung up on that? Her vision blurs with tears, but anger carries her forward. Do you know what it felt like? Standing on that stage, scanning the crowd, hoping, begging to see a familiar face. And all I got was empty seats. I wanted one moment. Just one. And you traded it for nachos and beer. Her father's jaw tightens. Don't exaggerate. We've given you more than you realize. A roof, food, bare minimum, she snaps, fire in her voice now. You don't get a medal for providing the things every parent is supposed to. What about love? Support? Pride? Silence answers her, heavy and suffocating. Her mother breaks first, her tone sharp as vinegar. We raised you better than this. Look at you now, so ungrateful. Acting like you're above us because some boy is sniffing around. Her heart stutters. Ethan. She hadn't mentioned him, but of course they noticed. Her mother's words drip with disdain, as if his kindness is some stain on her dot, something inside her cracks. She straightens, her hands trembling but her voice clear. Ethan sees me. He listens. He doesn't make me feel small. He doesn't use me. Can you say the same? Her mother looks away. Mark rolls his eyes. But her father steps closer, his presence filling every corner of the room. You're not walking away from us, he says, low and dangerous. We're your blood. You'll regret it if you turn your back now. The old fear surges, the instinct to shrink, to obey, to sacrifice. But beneath it, a different fire burns. Ethan's words echo in her memory. You don't owe them. They should love you, not use you. Her breath shakes as she speaks. I've been regretting staying loyal to you my entire life. I won't regret walking away. The room stills. Her father's face reddens, veins standing out at his temple. You ungrateful. Stop. The word bursts from her, fierce and final. You don't get to call me ungrateful when you never gave me anything worth being grateful for. Her mother's eyes glisten, not with love, but fury. Mark mutters something cruel she doesn't catch. And in the middle of it all, she feels her chest split open, grief and freedom colliding in a storm she can barely hold. Her father slams his fist against the table, the sound rattling the dishes. This isn't over, he growls. You'll come around. He turns, storming toward the door, her mother following with whispered curses, Mark trailing with a smirk. The slam of the door behind them shakes the walls, and then silence. She collapses onto the couch, her sobs racking her body. For years, she's dreamed of saying those words, of standing up to them, but the victory tastes like ashes in her mouth. The door creaks again, softer this time. She startles, but it's only Ethan. His eyes search hers, worry etched across his face. He must have heard everything. Without a word, he crosses the room and sits beside her. She leans into him before she can stop herself, the warmth of his arms holding her together when she feels like she's falling apart. I ruined everything, she whispers against his shoulder. No. His voice is steady, certain. You finally told the truth. That's not ruin. That's the beginning. She closes her eyes, breathing him in, letting his words settle in the cracks of her breaking heart. For the first time in her life, someone isn't demanding, isn't condemning, just holding her, steady as the earth itself. Yet beneath the comfort, fear coils tight. Because beginnings are dangerous, and every choice comes with a price. The apartment feels different after they leave. Too quiet. Too still. The air itself seems heavier, as though it remembers the shouting, the slammed doors, the bitter words thrown like knives. She moves through the rooms as if wading through water, each corner echoing with fragments of a battle she both won and lost. That night, she lies awake staring at the ceiling. Sleep won't come. The silence presses in from all sides, a silence both liberating and suffocating. For the first time, she is free of their demands, free of their shadows, and yet the hollow ache of abandonment, gnaws at her bones. The clock ticks past midnight, then 1, then 2. She rolls over, pulls the blanket tighter around her, but nothing eases the weight in her chest. Her phone buzzes once on the nightstand. Not her family. They haven't reached out since storming off. But Ethan? Still awake? She hesitates before replying, fingers trembling over the screen. Yes. Moments later, another buzz. I'm coming over. You don't have to be alone tonight. Her chest tightens. Part of her wants to tell him not to spare him from the rawness of her grief. But another part, the part desperate for warmth in this cavern of silence, doesn't resist. When the knock comes, it's gentle, nothing like the pounding fists of her father earlier. She opens the door, and Ethan steps inside, his eyes immediately searching hers. You haven't slept, he says softly. She shakes her head, trying to smile but failing. Every time I close my eyes, I hear them again. Their voices, the way they looked at me. Ethan doesn't answer with words. Instead, he reaches out, brushing his thumb against her cheek. The simple touch shatters something inside her, and suddenly the tears she's been holding back all evening come flooding out. She crumbles into his arms, and he holds her, as though his embrace alone could keep her from falling apart. I feel so stupid, she sobs against his shoulder. I wanted them to love me. Just once, to choose me. And now that they're gone, I miss them anyway. His arms tighten around her. That's not stupid. That's being human. They move to the couch as she curls beside him, her knees drawn up, her head resting against his chest. His heartbeat is steady, grounding her in a way nothing else can. He strokes her hair, patient, quiet, letting her spill her pain in broken sentences and long silences. Hours stretch, and yet neither moves away. In that fragile space, her grief unravels thread by thread. I keep wondering if I did the right thing, she whispers at last, her voice hoarse from crying. Ethan tilts his head to look at her. Do you regret it? Her throat tightens. I don't know. I feel lighter, but emptier too. Like I cut off a part of myself, and now I'm just bleeding. You didn't cut off a part of yourself, he says gently. You cut off the chains. There's a difference. His words land heavy and tender all at once. She wants to believe them, but doubt still claws at her. Then why does it hurt so much? Because they were supposed to love you right. And they didn't. You're mourning what you deserved, not what you lost. The silence that follows is softer this time, less suffocating, though still full of ache. She studies him, the way his eyes hold hers without flinching, the way his hand doesn't let go of hers. For a fleeting moment, warmth blooms through the cracks of her sorrow. Later, when dawn begins to gray the edges of the sky, he makes her tea. The small kitchen hums with quiet sounds, the whistle of the kettle, the clink of mugs, and she sits at the table watching him. Something about the ordinary intimacy of it brings a lump to her throat. You don't have to keep rescuing me, she says softly as he sets the steaming cup in front of her. He leans against the counter, his expression unreadable. Maybe I'm not rescuing you. Maybe I just want to be where you are. Even in the silence, her heart stirs. The idea that someone would want to stay, even when she is broken, feels almost impossible. She wraps her hands around the mug, letting the heat seep into her palms, into her chest. But the doubts don't vanish. That night becomes many nights. Nights where silence feels like a companion she can't quite shake. Ethan stays often, sometimes sleeping on the couch, sometimes beside her, always steady. But even love cannot erase the hollow ache. One night, unable to sleep again, she turns to him in the darkness. Do you ever think I'm too much? Too broken? He shifts closer, his hand finding hers under the blanket. No, he says simply. I think you're someone who's been starved of love for too long. And that's not your fault. Her chest tightens. She wants to believe him, but part of her fears he'll grow tired eventually, the way her family always did. The fear clings to her like a shadow, whispering doubts in every quiet hour. And yet, with every whispered reassurance, every steady glance, every gentle hand on hers, Ethan pushes back against that shadow. Slowly, painfully, she begins to wonder if maybe, just maybe, home doesn't have to mean blood. Maybe it can mean a heartbeat beside hers in the silence. The realization both terrifies and comforts her. Because if home can be found here, then perhaps love can too. But love also means risk, and her heart is still stitched together with fragile threads. As another dawn paints pale light across the floor, she lies awake beside him, listening to his breathing, feeling the warmth of his hand loosely curled around hers. For the first time, the silence doesn't feel like a prison. It feels like possibility. The morning sun slants through the curtains in a soft golden hue, tracing patterns across the floorboards. She watches the light from the edge of the bed, bare feet curled into the blanket, her thoughts still tangled in yesterday's ache. The silence of the house should feel lonely, but it doesn't. Somewhere in the kitchen, he hums, tuneless, content, alive in a way that makes the air feel less heavy. She draws a breath, holding it, as though afraid even air could shatter this fragile peace. For so long, silence had meant judgment. Growing up, it had been the weapon of choice. The quiet between slammed doors, the tension that sat at the dinner table like an invisible intruder. Silence was punishment, a reminder that love could be withdrawn at will. But here now, in this little apartment with its uneven shelves and faint smell of coffee, silence feels different. It feels safe. Are you going to hide in there all morning? His voice calls out, warm and playful, shattering her reverie. She smiles despite herself. Depends. What's waiting for me if I come out? Toast. Burnt toast, if I'm honest. He appears in the doorway, holding 2 plates, grinning sheepishly. His hair is still damp from the shower, a towel draped haphazardly around his neck. Her laughter spills before she can stop it, sudden and surprising, the sound almost foreign in her own ears. She presses a hand to her lips, shaking her head. You're terrible at this. Terrible at breakfast. Maybe, he admits, stepping into the room, but not terrible at trying. He sets the plate down beside her, and when he sits, the mattress dips, carrying her slightly toward him. She leans into the shift without thinking, her shoulder brushing his. That small contact, light as it is, sends warmth through her. You don't have to keep trying so hard, she whispers, eyes fixed on the toast. Double quotes. Yes, I do. His reply is steady, almost fierce in its simplicity. Because you deserve someone who will. Someone who keeps showing up. Her throat tightens. It is such a stark contrast, to be wanted not because she is useful, not because she can give, but because she simply is. She has spent so many years twisting herself into shapes that pleased others, shrinking to fit into the small spaces of conditional affection. And here he is, burning toast just to make her smile. She takes a bite, grimacing dramatically. This is awful. He laughs, tilting his head back, unashamed. Then I guess I'll just have to learn. I hear practice makes perfect. There is a tenderness in that promise, an unspoken vow woven between his words. It hits her in a place deeper than she expects, because for the first time in her life, love feels like something to grow into, not a mold she must break herself to fit. Later that day, they walk along the narrow streets of the old town, the autumn air cool enough to make her tuck her hands into the sleeves of her sweater. He notices, wordless, and gently takes her hand, tucking it into his coat pocket with his. The gesture is small, but it anchors her, grounding her in the moment. Do you ever think, she begins, hesitating, that love isn't what we're taught it is? He glances at her, brows furrowed. What do you mean? She takes a breath, searching for the right words. Growing up, love was always heavy, something I owed, a debt I could never fully pay. But with you, she falters, biting her lip. It feels different. It feels like I don't have to earn it. He squeezes her hand. That's because you don't. Not with me. Not ever. His certainty nearly undoes her. Tears threaten at the edges of her eyes, but she blinks them back, unwilling to break the moment. They pass a bakery, the smell of fresh bread spilling into the street, and for a second, the world feels impossibly soft, almost like a dream she doesn't deserve to be living. You make it sound so easy, she murmurs. Love is supposed to be simple, he replies. It's people who make it complicated. She thinks of her family then, of the ultimatums, the guilt, the way they twisted affection into chains. A shadow passes across her heart, but his fingers tighten around hers, pulling her back. Maybe love, real love, is as simple as two people deciding to stay. That night, lying on the couch with her legs stretched across his lap, she tells him about the nights she used to cry herself to sleep, afraid she would never be enough for anyone. She tells him about the apologies she gave that were never returned, the endless waiting for words of affirmation that never came. He listens, not interrupting, his thumb tracing slow circles against her ankle. His silence is not the silence she grew up with. It is full of presence, of care. When she finally runs out of words, he looks at her, eyes soft but steady. You're not broken, he says simply. You were just taught the wrong definition of love. Her breath hitches. The words land like a key turning inside her, unlocking something she didn't know had been trapped. For the first time, she doesn't feel like she has to defend herself, or explain herself, or twist herself into something smaller. She just is, and he calls it enough. She leans forward, pressing her forehead against his shoulder, letting his warmth seep into her. Stay, she whispers, though she knows he will. Always, he answers, and for once she believes it. Days fold into weeks. They fall into rhythms, cooking together and laughing at his failures, reading by the window, late-night drives with the radio low. Every moment, however ordinary, becomes sacred. She learns that love is not in grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but in the quiet things. The way he refills her tea without asking. The way he remembers which songs make her feel safe. The way he holds her hand as though it's the most natural thing in the world. Slowly, the sharp edges inside her begin to soften. The emptiness that once echoed in her chest is filled, not with noise, but with presence. She begins to understand that belonging is not about being claimed, but about choosing and being chosen in return. One evening, as they sit on the fire escape watching the city lights flicker on, he asks her, "When did you know?" "Know what?" She teases. That this us was different. She pauses, thinking. The cool night air brushes against her skin, the hum of traffic below blending into the quiet between them. "The night you stayed," she finally says. "When I was falling apart, and you didn't ask me to explain, didn't try to fix it. You just stayed." He smiles, turning to kiss the top of her head. "That's all I ever want to do." She closes her eyes, letting the moment sink into her bones. For the first time in her life, love feels like a home she doesn't have to fear being cast out of. And as she leans into him, she knows she is learning the shape of love, and it is nothing like what she was taught. It is better. The knock comes on a quiet Sunday afternoon. It isn't polite nor tentative, but loud and insistent, rattling the door like a demand instead of a request. The sound pulls her out of her reverie, breaking the stillness of the small apartment where the scent of tea still lingers. She freezes, heart clenching in her chest. She doesn't need to look through the peephole. She knows. He looks up from the book in his lap, sensing her stillness. "Do you want me to?" "No." Her voice is steady, but her hands tremble. She presses them against her thighs, grounding herself. "I'll answer." The walk to the door feels longer than it is. She opens it slowly, and there they stand. Her mother, her brother, two faces she once loved so fiercely, it nearly destroyed her. Her mother's eyes sweep over her, the neat apartment behind her, the calm in her expression, the subtle signs of a life built without them. There is no greeting, no softness, only a sharp inhale, followed by words that feel rehearsed. "We need money. You know family comes first." The sentence slams into her like a ghost from the past, dragging behind it years of guilt, years of sacrifice. Once those words would have pierced her. Once they would have bent her into compliance. But today, something inside her does not break. It holds. Her brother steps forward, impatience etched across his features. "You've been living well while we've been struggling. You owe us." She lets the silence stretch. In it, she feels the weight of their expectation pressing down on her shoulders. The same weight she has carried since she was old enough to understand that love in her family meant debt. But now she also feels the counterweight, the strength she has grown, the love she has chosen, the safety she has built. Her voice, when it comes, is quiet but unshaking. "No." The word echoes in the narrow hallway. A single syllable, yet it feels like cutting a chain that has bound her for years. Her mother's face hardens. "Don't be ungrateful. After all we've done for you." A bitter laugh escapes her lips, surprising even herself. "After all you've done?" Her voice rises, fueled by years of swallowed words. "You taught me that love meant silence, that family meant bending until I broke. You never saw me. You only saw what you could take." Her mother flinches, but her brother scoffs. "You've changed. You think you're better than us now." "I don't think I'm better," she says, her voice thick with emotion. "I just finally know my worth. And I won't trade it away. Not for you, not for anyone." Behind her, she feels his presence. He hasn't moved closer, hasn't intervened, but she knows he is there, steady, supportive, ready if she falters. That quiet reassurance is enough to steady her breath. Her mother's eyes glisten with anger, or perhaps shame. "You'll regret this." Blood is blood. She swallows hard, tears stinging her eyes. Blood is not love. And love doesn't hurt the way you've hurt me. For a moment, the hallway is thick with unspoken history. Years of longing, years of pain, years of a bond poisoned by conditions and control. She feels the ache of it, the part of her that still mourns what could have been. But alongside that ache is clarity. She will not go back. "Leave," she whispers. "Please." Her mother opens her mouth, but something in her daughter's face, the unwavering strength, the finality, stops her. She turns sharply, muttering under her breath, and her brother follows, throwing her a look of contempt as they disappear down the stairs. The door closes with a click, and she leans against it, breath shuddering out of her as though she has just run a marathon. Her body trembles, but it is not weakness. It is release. He sets the book aside and comes to her without a word, wrapping his arms around her. She buries her face into his chest, her tears finally breaking free. They are not tears of guilt, not anymore. They are tears of mourning, for the family she wished she had, and for the girl she no longer is. "You did it," he murmurs, pressing a kiss to her hair. "You chose yourself." The words settle deep in her, anchoring her in a new reality. She nods, though her body shakes. "It hurts." "Of course it does." His voice is gentle. "But hurt is not the same as harm. You're safe now." She clings to him, letting his heartbeat steady hers. For so long, she had been afraid that choosing herself meant being alone. But as his arms hold her, she understands. Choosing herself doesn't mean shutting love out. It means making room for the kind of love that heals. Not wounds dot in the days that follow. The ache lingers. She finds herself staring out the window sometimes, wondering if she did the right thing, if she was too harsh, if perhaps she should have given them one more chance. The old guilt is a ghost that doesn't die easily, but every time doubt creeps in, he is there. He reminds her in small ways, the coffee waiting on the table, the soft hand at her back, the way he listens without judgment. Love, real love, is in the constancy of his presence. One evening, she tells him, "I thought choosing myself would feel selfish." But it doesn't. It feels necessary. He smiles, brushing a strand of hair from her face. It's not selfish to protect your peace. It's brave. And you're braver than you know. She leans into his touch, the truth of his words seeping into her bones. Brave. The word feels foreign, yet right. She has been many things in her life. Dutiful, obedient, broken. But now, she is something new. The night is quiet when she finally lets herself dream again. For years, her dreams were small, limited by fear and obligation. But now, lying beside him, her fingers entwined with his, she allows herself to imagine a future not defined by survival, but by choice. A future filled with laughter that doesn't echo with conditions, love that doesn't demand sacrifice, and peace that doesn't come with a price tag dot. She turns to him, whispering into the stillness, "Thank you." He opens his eyes, smiling softly. "For what?" "For showing me that love can be different." He kisses her forehead, his voice steady. "You showed yourself. I just reminded you." Her chest swells with warmth. For the first time, she doesn't feel like she's walking away empty-handed. She is walking away with herself, whole, worthy, and enough.